Contents. Preface. Chapter 1. The Americas, Europe, and Africa before 1492. Introduction. 1.1. The Americas. 1.2. Europe on the brink of change. 1.3. West Africa and the role of slavery. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 2. Early globalization. The Atlantic world, 1492 to 1650. Introduction. 2.1. Portuguese exploration and Spanish conquest. 2.2. Religious upheavals in the developing Atlantic world. 2.3. Challenges to Spain's supremacy. 2.4. New worlds in the Americas. Labor, commerce, and the Columbian exchange. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 3. Creating New Social Orders. Colonial Societies, 1500 to 1700. Introduction. 3.1. Spanish Exploration and Colonial Society. 3.2. Colonial Rivalries. Dutch and French Colonial Ambitions. 3.3. English Settlements in America. 3.4. The Impact of Colonization. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 4. Rule Britannia. The English Empire, 1660 to 1763. Introduction. 4.1. Charles II and the Restoration Colonies. 4.2. The Glorious Revolution in the English Empire. 4.3. An Empire of Slavery and the Consumer Revolution. 4.4. Great Awakening and Enlightenment. 4.5. Wars for Empire. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 5. Imperial Reforms and Colonial Protests, 1763 to 1774. Introduction. 5.1. Confronting the National Debt. The Aftermath of the French and Indian War. 5.2. The Stamp Act and the Sons and Daughters of Liberty. 5.3. The Townshend Acts and Colonial Protest. 5.4. The Destruction of the Tea and the Coercive Acts. 5.5. Disaffection. The First Continental Congress and American Identity. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 6. America's War for Independence, 1775 to 1783. Introduction. 6.1. Britain's Law and Order Strategy and its Consequences. 6.2. The Early Years of the Revolution. 6.3. War in the South. 6.4. Identity during the American Revolution. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 7. Creating Republican Governments, 1776 to 1790. Introduction. 7.1. Common Sense. From Monarchy to an American Republic. 7.2. How much revolutionary change? 7.3. Debating Democracy. 7.4. The Constitutional Convention and Federal Constitution. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 8. Growing Pains. The New Republic, 1790 to 1820. Introduction. 8.1. Competing Visions. Federalists and Democratic Republicans. 8.2. The New American Republic. 8.3. Partisan Politics. 8.4. The United States Goes Back to War. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 9. Industrial Transformation in the North, 1800 to 1850. Introduction. 9.1. Early Industrialization in the Northeast. 9.2. A Vibrant Capitalist Republic. 9.3. On the Move. The Transportation Revolution. 9.4. A New Social Order. Class Divisions. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 10. Jacksonian Democracy, 1820 to 1840. Introduction. 10.1. A New Political Style. From John Quincy Adams to Andrew Jackson. 10.2. The Rise of American Democracy. 10.3. The Nullification Crisis and the Bank War. 10.4. Indian Removal. 10.5. The tyranny and triumph of the majority. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 11. A Nation on the Move. Westward Expansion, 1800 to 1860. Introduction. 11.1. Lewis and Clark. 11.2. The Missouri Crisis. 11.3. Independence for Texas. 11.4. The Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. 11.5. Free or slave soil? The Dilemma of the West. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 12. Cotton is King. The Antebellum South, 1800 to 1860. Introduction. 12.1. The Economics of Cotton. 12.2. African Americans in the Antebellum United States. 12.3. Wealth and Culture in the South. 12.4. The Filibuster and the Quest for New Slave States. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 13. Antebellum Idealism and Reform Impulses, 1820 to 1860. Introduction. 13.1. An Awakening of Religion and Individualism. 13.2. Antebellum Communal Experiments. 13.3. Reforms to Human Health. 13.4. Addressing Slavery. 13.5. Women's Rights. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 14. Troubled Times. The Tumultuous 1850s. Introduction. 14.1. The Compromise of 1850. 14.2. The Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Republican Party. 14.3. The Dred Scott Decision and Sectional Strife. 14.4. John Brown and the Election of 1860. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 15. The Civil War, 1860 to 1865. Introduction. 15.1. The Origins and Outbreak of the Civil War. 15.2. Early Mobilization and War. 15.3. 1863. The Changing Nature of the War. 15.4. The Union Triumphant. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 16. The Era of Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. Introduction. 16.1. Restoring the Union. 16.2. Congress and the Remaking of the South, 1865 to 1866. 16.3. Radical Reconstruction, 1867 to 1872. 16.4. The Collapse of Reconstruction. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 17. Go West Young Man. Westward Expansion, 1840 to 1900. Introduction. 17.1. The Westward Spirit. 17.2. Homesteading. Dreams and Realities. 17.3. Making a Living in Gold and Cattle. 17.4. The Assault on American Indian Life and Culture. 17.5. The Impact of Expansion on Chinese Immigrants and Hispanic Citizens. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 18. Industrialization and the Rise of Big Business, 1870 to 1900. Introduction. 18.1. Inventors of the Age, 18.2. From Invention to Industrial Growth, 18.3. Building Industrial America on the Backs of Labor, 18.4. A New American Consumer Culture. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 19. The Growing Pains of Urbanization, 1870 to 1900. Introduction. 19.1. Urbanization and its Challenges, 19.2. The African American Great Migration and New European Immigration, 19.3. Relief from the Chaos of Urban Life, 19.4. Change Reflected in Thought and Writing. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 20. Politics in the Gilded Age, 1870 to 1900. Introduction. 20.1. Political Corruption in Postbellum America, 20.2. The key political issues: patronage, tariffs, and gold. 20.3. Farmers' revolt in the populist era. 20.4. Social and labor unrest in the 1890s. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 21. Leading the Way. The Progressive Movement, 1890 to 1920. Introduction. 21.1 The Origins of the Progressive Spirit in America. 21.2. Progressivism at the Grassroots Level. 21.3. New Voices for Women and African Americans. 21.4. Progressivism in the White House. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 22. Age of Empire. American Foreign Policy, 1890 to 1914. Introduction. 22.1. Turner, Mahan, and the Roots of Empire. 22.2. The Spanish-American War and Overseas Empire. 22.3. Economic Imperialism in East Asia. 22.4. Roosevelt's Big Stick Foreign Policy. 22.5. Taft's Dollar Diplomacy. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 23. Americans and the Great War, 1914 to 1919. Introduction. 23.1. American Isolationism and the European Origins of War. 23.2. The United States Prepares for War. 23.3. A New Home Front. 23.4. From War to Peace. 23.5. Demobilization and its difficult aftermath. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 24. The Jazz Age. Redefining the Nation, 1919 to 1929. Introduction. 24.1. Prosperity in the Production of Popular Entertainment. 24.2. Transformation and Backlash. 24.3. A New Generation. 24.4. Republican Ascendancy. Politics in the 1920s. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 25. Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? The Great Depression, 1929 to 1932. Introduction. 25.1 The Stock Market Crash of 1929. 25.2. President Hoover's Response. 25.3. The Depths of the Great Depression. 25.4. Assessing the Hoover Years on the Eve of the New Deal. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 26. Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal, 1932 to 1941. Introduction. 26.1. The Rise of Franklin Roosevelt. 26.2. The First New Deal. 26.3. The Second New Deal. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 27. Fighting the Good Fight in World War II, 1941 to 1945. Introduction. 27.1. The Origins of War. Europe, Asia, and the United States. 27.2. The Home Front. 27.3. Victory in the European Theater. 27.4. The Pacific Theater and the Atomic Bomb. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 28. Post-War Prosperity and Cold War Fears, 1945 to 1960. Introduction. 28.1. The Challenges of Peacetime. 28.2. The Cold War. 28.3. The American Dream. 28.4. Popular Culture and Mass Media. 28.5. The African American Struggle for Civil Rights. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 29. Contesting Futures. America in the 1960s. Introduction. 29.1. The Kennedy Promise. 29.2. Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society. 29.3. The Civil Rights Movement Marches On. 29.4. Challenging the Status Quo. Key terms. Summary. Review questions. Critical thinking questions. Chapter 30. Political Storms at Home and Abroad, 1968 to 1980. Introduction. 30.1. Identity Politics in a Fractured Society. 30.2. Coming Apart, Coming Together. 30.3. Vietnam. The Downward Spiral. 30.4. Watergate. Nixon's Domestic Nightmare. 30.5. Jimmy Carter in the Aftermath of the Storm. Key Terms. Summary. Review Questions. Critical Thinking Questions. Chapter. From Cold War to Culture Wars, 1980 to 2000. Introduction. 31.1. The Reagan Revolution. 31.2. Political and Cultural Fusions. 31.3. A New World Order. 31.4. Bill Clinton and the New Economy. Key Terms. Summary. Review Questions. Critical Thinking Questions. Chapter 32. The Challenges of the 21st Century. Introduction. 32.1. The War on Terror. 32.2. The Domestic Mission. 32.3. New Century, Old Disputes. 32.4. Hope and Change. Key Terms. Summary. Review Questions. Critical Thinking Questions. Appendix A. The Declaration of Independence. Appendix B. The Constitution of the United States. Appendix C. Presidents of the United States of America. Appendix D. U.S. Political Map. Appendix E. U.S. Topographical Map. Appendix F. United States Population Chart. Appendix G. Further reading. Answer key. Index.